Hey, you think I don't know about YouTube? Well, I do. With today's story, you laugh, you learn, and you remember where you come from and recognize where you are going. The elders say, what the old sees while sitting, a young cannot see even from the top of a tree. So come now, listen well and let the story speak to your spirit.
In the rolling hills of northern Tanzania, where the acacia trees sway like dancers in the wind, and the cattle roam freely under the golden sun, there lay the village of Mwembe. Its people were hardy and proud, tending their crops of maize and millet and raising cattle whose bells chime softly at dawn. The village lived by the rhythm of the seasons and the wisdom passed down from elders, whose voices carried the weight of generations. In Mwembe, stories were not merely told, they were lived, and their truths were etched into the hearts of all who listened. At the heart of the village stood the hut of Chief Mkali, a man whose name meant fierce in Swahili. And fierce he was, though not always in battle or in courage. His fierceness was of the appetite, of the greed that had grown within him like a thorny bush, prickling and spreading, consuming all reason and humility. Chief Mkali had risen to power on the shoulders of his people, yet he believed the village owed him everything. He took the fattest cows, the ripest millet, the choicest honey, leaving scraps for the rest. And so the villagers whispered in the shade of their huts, "The chief eats the sun and leaves us the shadow." It was during the harvest season, when the maize swelled golden and the earth smelled sweet after the rains, that Chief Mkali decreed a great feast. Not a feast of sharing, as was tradition when the village honored the harvest and the ancestors, but a feast for himself and those who would flatter him. Let the drums sound and let the gourds overflow with honeyed milk. Let there be meat from the fattest cow, roasted until the smoke curls like the serpent of the river. All must bow, all must serve, and all must watch me revel in the bounty that is rightfully mine.
The villagers, knowing the nature of their chief, prepared quietly. Mothers hushed children who asked why the feast seemed to honor only one man, and fathers exchanged solemn glances as they slaughtered cattle in secret to ensure their families had food. Among them was a young woman named Amina, who had sharp eyes and a clever tongue. Amina had grown up hearing her grandmother sing the old songs of wisdom. Usi ogope kicheko cha wende, bali kicheko cha moyo safi. Do not fear the laughter of the sharp-toothed, but the laughter of a pure heart. She remembered that song as she observed Chief Mkali's preparations, her mind weaving plans of her own. On the morning of the feast, drums rolled across Mwembe like thunder in the sky. The villagers lined the pathways, bringing gifts of fruit, baskets of maize, and clay pots of milk. Chief Mkali sat in the center of the largest hut, his leopard skin robe glimmering, a crown of cowrie shells upon his head. Around him danced the flutists and drummers, the air thick with smoke and incense. But despite the splendor, unease rippled through the crowd. Many could see the hunger in one another's eyes and the shadows of resentment that lurked behind polite smiles. Among the guests was Mse Jabari, the village elder. His back was bent, his hair as white as the clouds that drifted over Kilimanjaro. But his eyes were sharp, like the eyes of an eagle scanning the plains. Mse Jabari had seen chiefs rise and fall, and he had learned the ways of men who let greed blind their hearts. He whispered to those around him, "A tree that feeds only itself grows bitter fruit. Mark my words, the feast will reveal the truth."
As the meat was brought in, roasted and dripping with fat, Chief Mkali's mouth watered. He took the first bite with great ceremony, exclaiming, "Ah, this is the taste of victory, of power, of wisdom. None shall eat like me, for I am the master of Mwembe." But Amina, standing near the doorway, watched keenly. She knew the chief's greed could be turned against him if one was clever, and she had a plan. The first twist came when a humble herdsman, Juma, approached the chief with a gift. It was a single large gourd, carved intricately with symbols of protection and prosperity. "A gift for our chief," Juma said, bowing low. Mkali snatched it eagerly, praising Juma for his loyalty. He did not notice Amina's fingers slip behind her back as she carefully poured a little of the gourd's contents, a mixture of honey and finely ground herbs, into the stew that simmered over the fire. The herbs were harmless but would cause vivid dreams, dreams that exposed the heart of a man to himself. As night fell and the feast reached its height, Chief Mkali felt a strange drowsiness. He leaned back, the leopard skin slipping from his shoulders, and soon found himself lost in visions. In his dream, the ancestors appeared, cloaked in silver light, their eyes as deep as the lakes. They whispered, "You have feasted alone, yet the village hungers. You have taken what is not yours, yet you are empty inside. Look upon your deeds and see yourself as you truly are."
The dream shifted, and Mkali saw Amina, not as a young woman, but as a spirit of the harvest, her eyes blazing with the sun's fire. She spoke without words, yet the meaning was clear. Greed blinds the heart. Deception leads only to ruin. What you take from the people will be taken from you. Mkali awoke with a start, sweat streaming down his face, but the visions lingered, and he felt the first pangs of fear in his chest. Meanwhile, Amina moved quietly among the guests, whispering to those who had long suffered in silence. She reminded them of the old laws of justice. Haki ni kama maji, it finds its way through cracks. Justice is like water, it finds its way through cracks. Soon, a murmur spread through the crowd. The villagers began to speak of the unfairness of the feast, of how the chief had taken more than his share, of how he had ignored the hungry and the poor. The tension mounted as Chief Mkali, unaware of the growing unrest, demanded more meat, more milk, more praise. But then came the moment of betrayal. One of his closest advisors, a man named Baraka, who had long plotted to supplant him, saw his chance. Whispering to the village guard, Baraka accused Mkali of hoarding food meant for all. He claimed the chief had been feeding himself alone while secretly storing the village's provisions for personal gain. At first, the villagers gasped in disbelief. How could the chief betray them so? But then, as they looked closer, they saw the hidden storehouses, the secret granaries filled with maize and honey, enough to feed the village for months. Anger fled, rising like a wildfire across the crowd. Mkali tried to deny, to command, to charm,
but the words fell flat. The villagers surrounded him, their eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and righteous fury. In the midst of the chaos, Amina stepped forward. Her voice rang clear, cutting through the shouting. "Chief Mkali, you have feasted upon our toil, yet our hearts are not yours to command. You have forgotten the wisdom of our ancestors, that maji uchafuka kwa wingi wake, water becomes impure in excess. You have taken too much, and in taking, you have poisoned yourself." The chief, trembling and cornered, tried to strike at her, but the village guard, swayed by the truth of her words, held him back. And then the greatest twist of all occurred. The god that Juma had given Mkali, which Amina had subtly spiced, released its magic. The chief's words became confused, his thoughts twisted. He saw himself not as a powerful ruler, but as a lonely, foolish man, a prisoner of his own desires. The villagers watched in awe as Mkali, for the first time, experienced fear, shame, and regret. Baraka, thinking victory was his, moved to claim the chiefship. But Amina raised her hand, stopping him. The village does not belong to one man. Power without wisdom is like a spear without a point. The harvest feeds all, the sun shines on all, and justice must guide our path. The villagers murmured in agreement, and in that moment, a new council was formed, not of one greedy man, but of elders, women and men, all chosen for their wisdom and integrity.
As for Chief Mkali, he was not cast out completely, for the villagers believed in redemption. He was made to walk among the people, to till the soil, to carry water, and to share in the labor he had once thought beneath him. And in doing so, he began to understand the rhythms of life, the importance of giving as well as taking, and the truth of the old songs. Asiyefunzwa na mamaye hufunzwa na ulimwengu. He who is not taught by his mother is taught by the world. Seasons passed and Mwembe flourished. The council ensured that feasts were shared, that no one went hungry, and that the land was respected. Chief Mkali, humbled and wiser, would sit in the shade of the acacia trees, telling his own stories of greed and folly to young children, warning them that the hunger of the heart is far more dangerous than the hunger of the belly. And Amina, whose cleverness and courage had steered the village through the storm, was celebrated not as a ruler, but as a keeper of wisdom, a woman who reminded all that power must serve the people, not devour them. She would sometimes sing the old songs of harvest, her voice carrying across the hills, and the villagers would join in a chorus of laughter, learning, and life.
The tale of the greedy chief's feast became legend, passed down in the voices of elders around the fires at night, in the rhythmic clapping and drum beats of Mwembe. It was told to children with eyes wide in wonder and ears attuned to the cadence of wisdom, teaching them that greed blinds, that betrayal may be close at hand, but that courage, cleverness, and justice can restore balance. For in Mwembe, as in all places touched by the sun and wind, the truth endured. No one who holds may ever find peace, and those who live by the law of the heart shall always find their way, even through the shadows of deceit and the storms of fear. And so it was, and so it shall always be remembered, the feast that revealed not only the hunger of one, but the wisdom and unity of many. A feast not of meat alone, but of justice, courage, and the triumph of what is right. My dear ones, this is where our story ends for now. But tell me, what did your heart feel as you listened? Share your thoughts in the comment, You know Grandma loves to hear from you. And don't forget, press that subscribe button, like the story, and ring the little bell so that every time I come back here, you will be the first to join me. Until then, may your paths be safe, fruitful, and peaceful. Remember, keep your heart warm, your spirit curious and kind.